We're going to conclude the time this morning that we have in the parable of the sower, and what we have been learning over the past few weeks is that this actually should be called the parable of the soils, because in this parable, Jesus describes the soil conditions of the heart. And so, as we read it, and as you read it in the future, as you come to it in the scriptures, think of it as the parable of the soils. And that's how we'll refer to it from now on. But I want to read the parable one last time together so you can follow along in your Bibles, or just listen as I read Luke chapter 8. And I'm going to start with verse 4, and I'm going to read through verse 15. Luke 8. While a large crowd was gathering and people were coming to Jesus from town after town, he told this parable. So once again, Jesus is speaking to this large crowd of people. A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path. It was trampled on, and the birds ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground, and when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up with it and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than was sown. When he had said this, he called out to them, "Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." His disciples asked him what this parable meant. So then he begins speaking to his disciples. "The knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of God has been given to you, but to others I speak in parables, so that," and he quotes from the prophet Isaiah, "though seeing they may not see, though hearing they may not understand." And we've talked about this. And Isaiah was preaching to the Israelites. He was speaking to the Israelites, and he was told by God that you're going to speak and you're going to preach and you're going to prophesy, and they're not going to listen. They're not going to understand. How would you like to be that type of a preacher? Speaking and teaching and preaching, and you just realize no one is going to respond. He who has ears to hear, let them hear. And we've talked about this a lot throughout this series because this is so important. We've discovered this is actually the point of Jesus' parable. Some are more receptive than others. Some will accept the word and obey, and others will not. And why is that? We've been discovering it's because response is determined by the condition of the soil. Response is determined by the condition of the heart. And so many in the crowd that day, as Jesus is preaching, as Jesus is teaching, as he's telling this parable, many in the crowd, the majority of the people in the crowd would not receive the word. They would not respond to the word. But those who truly wanted to follow Jesus, these disciples and these followers who truly wanted to follow him, they would receive it. They would respond to it. They would understand what he's talking about. So then Jesus went on to explain to the disciples the meaning of the parable. He went to explain to the disciples what these soil conditions were all about. And the interesting thing is that if we really pay attention as we read throughout the Gospels, we will see this happening in Jesus' ministry. We will see examples of these responses to the word. So soil condition number 1. Jesus says this is the meaning of the parable. The seed is the word of God. Those along the path are the ones who hear, and then the devil comes and takes away the word from their hearts so that they may not believe and be saved. Soil condition number 1 is the hard heart. Someone who will not accept the message of the kingdom, of the word of God, of the gospel, no matter what. Satan just comes and plucks it away before it can reach their heart. An example of this is the Pharisees and the religious rulers, following Jesus around, listening, hearing what Jesus is saying, but not really listening. They're not going to respond to it. They're just there to prove Jesus wrong, to prove that they are right. Very hard-hearted. Their hearts were compacted. They were stubborn, hard-hearted. What about soil condition number 2? Those on the rocky ground are the ones who receive the word with joy when they hear it, but they have no root. They believe for a while, but in the time of testing, they fall away. So soil condition number 2 is the shallow heart, which we looked at a couple weeks ago. This is a superficial response to the word. Maybe someone who's trusting in a prayer. They went to the altar one time when they were younger, and it's just a shallow response. It wasn't genuine. There was no commitment there. The word doesn't take root. The word doesn't make its way from their head to their heart. And there's not enough room in their heart for the nutrients, to receive the nutrients they need to grow. And these are the people that we see throughout the Gospels who rallied around Jesus, this crowd of people that followed him around, who they were just there for what they could get from Jesus. They wanted a miracle. They wanted to see a miracle or receive a miracle. Maybe they wanted to be fed. But they refused to stick around when Jesus' message got a little bit tough. When they realized that it was going to cost them something to follow Jesus, they took off. Their faith wasn't legit. It was counterfeit. It was a shallow heart. And we continue reading. The seed that fell among the thorns stands for those who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by life's worries, riches, and pleasures, and they do not mature. And so we looked at this soil condition last week. The soil of the crowded heart. Someone trying to share the soil, trying to share their heart, and they don't bear fruit because they're choked, they're suffocated by the weeds of life's worries, riches, pleasures. And their soil is too crowded with lesser gods, with idols, with fake gods who can never deliver. And the word gets crowded out because God's not going to share your affection with anyone or anything. And we have an example of this that we mentioned last week, the rich young ruler who came to Jesus. And he wanted to follow Jesus, but his heart was too crowded with the lesser gods of riches, and he just couldn't do it, and he walked away sad. So, some are just not going to respond to the word. Some aren't going to respond to this kingdom message, the message of the gospel, because their hearts are not receptive to it. And here's the thing, we see these people even today, don't we? We can recognize, maybe even there's a face that we can put to these soil conditions. People who have a hard heart, people who have a shallow heart, people who have a crowded heart. We see these people in the crowd today in our workplaces, in our neighborhoods, in our schools. But the sad thing is that we see these people in our churches nowadays as well. People who hear the word week in and week out, but they truly have not responded fully to the word. But, and here's where we turn to soil condition number 4. But, and this is a big but. The seed on good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering, produce a crop. So finally, here we are, the good soil. And I'm going to call this the soft heart. But you could call it the good heart, the genuine heart, the responsive heart. What are the characteristics of this good, soft heart? Well, Jesus said, those with a noble, those on the good soil stand for those with a noble and good heart. A noble and a good heart. And your translation may say an honest and good heart. And both of these words here in the Greek mean good. So this is someone with a good heart. Now what does that mean? But these are different types of good in the Greek. You've got good on the outside. This is something that looks good, someone who looks good on the outside, maybe beautiful to look at. And then you have someone who's good on the inside. So what is this all about, this good heart? This is actually an authentic heart, a genuine heart. In other words, what you see on the outside, what the person says, what the person does, is the same as what's going on in the inside. They're genuine. There's no hypocrisy here. And in Matthew's gospel, when he tells the parable of the soils, he says that this person with this soft heart hears the word, hears it, and understands it. And in Mark, it says that this person hears and accepts the word. Here, Luke says that this person hears the word, retains the word, and by persevering produces a crop, hears it, retains it, perseveres. This is someone who keeps the word, holds fast to the word, continues in the word. This is about endurance. And to be honest, this kind of sounds like a lot of hard work, doesn't it? It sounds like a lot of effort on our part. But that's not what Jesus is talking about. This is not about hard work and effort on our part. Because Jesus said, come to me. And when you come to me and when you follow me, I'm going to take your burdens and I'm going to set them aside and I'm going to give you rest from your work. And I'm going to give you rest from your effort. So what's this talking about? This is not about effort. This is about relationship. This is about clinging to Jesus. This is about abiding in Jesus. This is about following Jesus, which we talk about a lot around here at Living Grace. And this is a supernatural process. What we're reading here, we talk about this a lot too, what God is doing in our lives is a supernatural process. You see, the gardener plants the seed. The gardener waters the seed. The gardener takes care of the weeds in the soil. And then the growth, the fruit, happens miraculously. So then what is our effort? What is our responsibility? What is our job? We receive the word. We cling to the word. We follow the word who is Jesus. And like we say all the time, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And so as we're following Jesus, as we're clinging to him and we're abiding in him, we'll take a couple steps forward. And maybe we'll take a step back. And then we'll take 3 steps forward and maybe 2 steps back. And then maybe 5 steps forward and 1 step back. And then eventually the steps forward are more than the steps backward. And we're moving in Jesus' direction and we're becoming more and more like him. So if you want to know if someone has this good heart, this soft heart, if you want to know if someone truly has responded to the word that has been sown, if they truly have had the ears to hear, it's not someone who came to the altar to pray a prayer. Come back a week later, come back a month later after they have had to deal with the lesser idols of this world. Come back a year later or 5 years later or 10 years later when they've had to experience trials and the difficulties of life. Have they persevered? Are they still clinging to Jesus? And you'll know by their fruit. Check out their crop. Check out their fruit. You'll know by what has grown from their life. So when there's a genuine heart, a soft heart, someone who accepts the word and receives Jesus and holds fast to him and abides in him and follows him through the ups and downs of life, the good that has taken root on the inside will automatically result in something truly good, something beautiful, something noticeable on the outside. That's what happens when the seed of the word takes root in someone's heart. It's fruit is produced. And so what is this fruit? And this is really important, and this is something we talk a lot about around here as well. This fruit, Paul mentions what this fruit of the good, soft heart is all about in Galatians, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. This is something that we are so familiar with, but this is so incredible, and this is life-changing. And here's the thing that I was thinking about this week. As the disciples were listening to Jesus, and he's telling them this parable, and then he says, I'm speaking to this crowd of people, and the majority of them aren't going to listen to me. They're not going to respond to me. I'm sure that they were confused. Do you think that they were confused? I mean, Jesus was the master storyteller. Jesus was the master teacher. He's preaching to these crowds, and thousands are not going to respond, and just a few are going to respond. Many will choose not to because of their hard hearts, their shallow hearts, their crowded hearts. So does that mean that Jesus' ministry wasn't very successful? Does this mean that Jesus was unsuccessful in his ministry? No, not at all, because we know what happened with just a small group of followers. And this just wasn't an apple here and an orange there and a banana, maybe a couple kiwis and maybe a bushel or two. No, this was a crop. This was a harvest that was produced. High yield investment. Jesus said it's 100 times more than what was sown. 100 times more than what was sown. And in Matthew, he says it's 100 times more and 60 times more and even 30 times more is just an incredible yield to that investment. This is a harvest of kingdom growth that we really can't even imagine, except for the fact that here we are today, sitting in this room 2,000 years later, still talking about it, and the word is still being sown. It's incredible. And so I think oftentimes we think in terms of addition, adding, this person to the kingdom, this person here accepting the message, and that person accepting the message, and maybe another family joining the church or whatever. But, we think in addition. But when we think about addition, God is actually thinking in multiplication. And I think we underestimate what the gardener can do, what the gardener can accomplish with just a few good, soft-hearted followers producing this type of fruit. I mean, just think about it. 100 times more love, 60 times more joy, 30 times more peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I mean, this really is a bountiful harvest. So, what lessons have you learned from this parable, the parable of the sowers? I'm going to give you some time here in a little bit to think about what you've learned. If you've been around for the past 4 weeks as we've gone through this parable, think about what you've learned, maybe your biggest takeaway. If you're here for the first time or you're listening online for the first time, maybe your biggest takeaway from today. But as you think about that, I'm gonna share with you just a couple of my biggest takeaways. First of all, from the perspective of the disciples. And Jesus was telling the disciples that, just like Isaiah preached to the Israelites, spoke to the Israelites, prophesied to the Israelites, and they weren't going to respond. They weren't going to listen. And, Jesus said it's the same with me. As I speak to the crowds, the majority of them aren't going to respond. They've got hard hearts, shallow hearts, crowded hearts. And it's going to be the same for you, disciples. One day as you go out and you sow the seed of the gospel, the message of the kingdom, many aren't going to respond. They're not going to listen. And so I think we have to take that to heart as well. As followers of Jesus, people who are truly following him, it's our responsibility to sow the word, to sow the seeds of the gospel. And we have to realize that many won't respond for various reasons, because of the soil of their hearts, and that's okay. But the harvest isn't up to us. And I think a lot of times we put too much pressure on ourselves. I know I put too much pressure on myself, like it's up to me. I've got to get this right. And I think we can take that pressure away and just sow the seed of the word, scatter the seed of the word, the message of the kingdom, the gospel. So if response is determined by the condition of the soil and only God can change hearts, then we can take the pressure off ourselves and just sow the seed. Let the ultimate gardener determine the response. Take care of the response. Take care of the growth. Now, does it matter how we sow the seed? Do our methods matter? I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm not going to talk much about this. This could be a whole new series, but I firmly believe that the methods matter. I hear some pastors and some teachers say it doesn't matter if response is determined by the condition of the soil, just sow the seed. But I think what happens is sometimes the methods become the message. Sometimes the methods we use become the message, and then it's not actually the word that we're sowing, it's something different. And like I said, that's for another time and another place. And just by the way, as a pastor, I desperately long for growth. I want our church to grow, and this just really takes a lot of pressure off me. I really just need to be faithful in sowing the word and obedient in sowing the word, and leave the response up to him, the growth up to him. I can't do anything about it. Only he can change hearts, and only he can cause there to be growth. And I also need to check my pride, because it's not about bottoms in the seats. It's not about attendance and getting people here, getting as many people as possible. Because I think even in many churches today, like I said earlier, we have people that aren't going to respond. Hard hearts, shallow hearts, crowded hearts. And so it's actually followers that matter. It's followers of Jesus that matter. And when it comes to the fruit and when it comes to the return on investment, it's usually the slow, steady growth over time that's more reliable. And so just give me a few committed followers of Christ producing this fruit for God's kingdom. And so one last thing from the perspective of the crowd. So I'm sowing the word today, and you are all a part of the crowd. A small crowd, but you're part of the crowd. I just want to ask, are you getting it? Are you understanding it? Do you truly have the ears to hear? And so I want to ask you one more time. I want you to ask yourself one more time, what is the condition of my heart? And personally, if you're not really concerned, if you don't care, if you've just kind of been zoning out, if this doesn't really move you, then you may have a hard heart, you may have a shallow heart, you may have a crowded heart. And you're probably not going to listen, and you're probably not going to respond and do anything with the word today. But just as Israel was hard-hearted and stubborn and wouldn't listen, there was still hope. And here's the hope. God spoke through the prophet Ezekiel and said, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And so that's what we pray for this morning. And so this morning, I invite you to follow Jesus. That's simply what I invite you to do, to follow Jesus, to put your trust in him. And for many of you, I just want to remind you to keep abiding in Jesus. Cling to Jesus daily. Remember, it's not a Sunday morning thing. It's an everyday thing. And follow him, abide with him, cling to him. And when we talk about the E's here at Living Grace, and you hear me talk about it all the time, this discipleship process of embracing a life of faith and expanding your learning and living of God's word, engaging in authentic relationships, extending love to community and word, those E's, you need to understand that's not about your effort. It's not about your effort. That's about your relationship. A growing relationship with God and others. So keep following and keep moving in his direction. Keep responding with perseverance. And the harvest will come. But the seed on good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering, produce a crop. So one last time, I want to say, whoever has ears to hear, let them hear.